They said she could break a horse with just her eyes. They said she'd lived alone in that cabin for 5 years and never once set foot in town. They said any man who ventured into her territory either came back changed or didn't come back at all. But what they didn't say, what nobody knew, was why she had chosen him. A 24-year-old rancher who'd never kissed a woman, standing at her door with his hat in his hands, asking for his horse back. You're about to find out what happens when the desert Amazon looks at a man and sees something nobody else can. And why, by sunrise, Dalton Hayes would understand that some lessons can only be learned in the dark. The stallion had been gone for 3 days when Dalton finally admitted to himself that he would have to go after him. Not just any horse, his father's last gift before the fever had taken him. A grey with a black mane, fast as lightning, a horse that could outrun anything in the territory. But the tracks led exactly where Dalton had feared they would. Past the creek, past the burnt cottonwood, and into Kaya's land. He'd seen her once from a distance, 2 years ago, tall enough that she didn't need to tilt her head to meet most men's eyes. She'd been leading 3 wild mustangs on a single rope, and they'd followed her like loyal dogs. The other ranchers talked about her the way you talk about storms, with respect and a little fear. Nobody knew where she came from. Nobody knew her full name, and nobody had been invited past her fence line in 5 years. Dalton's hands shook as he rode toward the canyon where her cabin sat. The sun was high, unforgiving, baking the earth until it felt like stone beneath his horse's hooves. Every part of him wanted to turn back to lose the stallion and buy another. But his father's voice rang louder than his fear. Hayes' men don't run from what scares them. The cabin appeared like a mirage, built from wood and stone into the canyon wall itself. A corral beside it held 5 horses, and there, standing among them like he belonged, was the grey stallion. Dalton's chest tightened. The horse looked better than when he'd left, fed, brushed, calm. Before he could dismount, the cabin door creaked open. She stepped out, and suddenly all the stories he'd heard about her felt too small. Kaya was taller than he remembered, her frame built from hard work and harder choices. She wore a tied shirt that showed off her muscled arm scarred, sun-dark-hand. Her hair moved in the wind like something alive, but it was her eyes that stopped him. They didn't look at him. They looked through him. She crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe, and Dalton realized, with cold clarity, that she'd been expecting him. "You're late," she said, her voice low, almost amused. "Horse has been here since dawn yesterday." Dalton's throat felt dry. He climbed down slowly, still holding his hat. "Ma'am, I'm here for the grey. I know whose horse it is." She pushed off the frame and started walking toward him, each step deliberate. "Question is, what are you willing to do to get him back?" The way she said it made his pulse kick. There was something in her tone that had nothing to do with the horse at all. She stopped just 3 feet away, close enough that he could smell sage and smoke on her skin. "I can pay," Dalton said, hating how young his voice sounded. Kaya's lips curved, but it wasn't quite a smile. "I don't want your money." She circled him slowly, like she was appraising a colt. "You're Hayes' boy, Dalton, right? The one who never comes to town, never drinks, never... ... She looked him over slowly, lingering. "Never does much of anything except work." His face burned. I do what needs doing." "I'm sure you do," she said, stopping in front of him again closer this time. "But you've never done what I'm about to ask." Dalton's heart hammered in his chest. "What's that?" Kaya tilted her head, studying him with something. That might have been curiosity or hunger. He couldn't tell which. When she spoke, her voice was silt over stone. "Stay the night here with me. Your horse will be yours again by sunrise." She paused, letting the weight of it settle. "But you walk away now, and he's mine." Every instinct screamed at him to refuse to climb onto his horse and ride away. But her eyes held him in place. And somewhere deep in his chest, beneath the fear, something else stirred, something he didn't have a name for yet. "Why?" His voice barely made it past his throat. Kaya stepped closer, so close that he could feel the heat of her body. She reached up slowly and took the hat from his hands. Her fingers brushed his, deliberate and warm. "Because, Dalton Hayes," she said softly, her breath almost touching his jaw, "you've never been with a woman like me." She turned toward the cabin, still holding his hat. "And I think it's time you learned what that means." With that, she disappeared inside, leaving the door open. An invitation, a dare, a cliff edge. Dalton stood frozen in the dust, staring at that open door, knowing that whatever he chose in the next 10 seconds would change everything. The inside of the cabin was darker than he expected, his eyes needing a moment to adjust from the brutal noon sun. Their space was smaller than his own place, but felt larger somehow, organized, deliberate. A bed in the corner with throw blankets, a table with 2 chairs, saddles, and rope hanging from the walls like art. The air smelled of leather and something else, something he couldn't name, something that made his chest feel tight. Carr was at the table, pouring water from a clay pitcher into 2 cups. She didn't look at him, but he knew she was aware of every breath he took, every shift of his weight. "Close the door," she said. Not a request. Dalton's hand found the wood, pushed it shut. The sound of it latching felt final. She slid 1 cup toward the empty chair. "Sit." He moved like his legs belonged to someone else, lowering himself into the chair across from her. The table was small, enough that their knees almost touched. Almost. She leaned back, studying him with that same unsettling jintancy, like she was reading a language written on his bones. "You're scared," she said simply. "I'm not." Booth's voice cracked and her eyebrow lifted. Dalton swallowed. "I don't understand why I'm here. For your horse, no." The word came out firmer than he intended. "You could have just given him back. This, whatever this is, there's something else." Kaz's smile was slow, approving, smart. She took our drink, her eyes never leaving his. "You want to know why I chose you?" She set the cup down, leaned forward. "Because every man who's come to my door in 5 years wanted something from me. They wanted to prove they could tame me, orb me, or break me." Her voice dropped lower. "You're the first one who looks terrified just to be in the same room." Dalton's face burned. "That's not it's honest." She cut him off. "And I'm tired of men who lie." She stood, moved around the table, and Dalton's breath caught. She stopped behind his chair, close enough that he could feel her presence, like heat at his back. "You know what you think, Dalton Hayes?" He couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Her hand rested on his shoulder, light but burning through the fabric of his shirt. I think you've spent your whole life being careful, doing the right thing, staying small and safe. Her fingers trailed to the base of his neck, and his entire body went-ridged. And I think there's a part of you that's dying to know what happens. If you stop. Dalton's hands were gripping Thiege at the table, knuckles white. His heart was slamming against his ribs so hard he thought she must be able to hear it. I don't. Yes, you do. She moved around to face him, leaning against the table edge close enough that her knee brushed his. That's why you didn't turn around and leave. That's why you're sitting here terrified and curious and trying not to show it. Her head tilted. You want to know what it feels like to not be afraid. She was right. The truth of it sat in his throat like a stone. He'd spent 24 years being his father's good son, the reliable rancher, the Monwo, never caused trouble. And he was so tired of being invisible. Car reached out, ran her thumb along his jaw. Thiege was feather light, but it sent electricity down his spine. I'm not going to hurt you, she said softly. But I am going to push you, and you're going to have to decide if you trust me. I don't even know you. Her smile turned dangerous. Then I guess you've got until sunrise to figure me out. She pulled back, moved toward the door. Come with him. There's something I need to show you. She opened it, stepped into the sun, and looked back. Unless you'd rather sit here and wonder what you missed. Dalton stood on shaking legs, his mind screaming at him to think, Tobe smart, to protect himself. But his feet were already moving toward the door, toward her, toward whatever come on next. She led him past the corral to a section of fence he hadn't noticed before. Beyond it, the canyon opened at a dinto, a natural arena of red rock and sparse grass. In the center, a black mare paced wild-eyed and snorting. Even from 30 feet away, Dalton could see the tension in every muscle of the animal's body. Caught her 4 days ago, Kaya said, arms crossed as she watched the mare. Mean as hell. Threw me twice yesterday. She glanced at him, and there was something new in her expression. Respect, maybe, or challenge. Your turn. Dalton's stomach dropped. What? You want your horse back? Show me you can handle one. She opened the gate, gestured him through. If you can get a rope on her without getting kicked, you've earned the right to stay. And if I can't, Kaya's smile was sharp, then you leave now, and your grey stays with me. Dalton looked at the mare, then back at Car. This wasn't about the horse. This was about something else entirely. A test. She wanted to see if he'd run, if he'd make excuses, if he'd back down the moment things got dangerous. He stepped through the gate. The mare's head snapped toward him, ears flat. Dalton kept his movement slow, unthreatening, the way his father had taught him. He didn't look directly at her eyes. That was aggression. Instead, he watched her body reading the language of muscle and breath. Talk to her, Kaya called from the fence. What? She's terrified. She doesn't know if you're here to hurt her or help her. So talk. Let her hear your voice. Dalton felt ridiculous. But Hester did, speaking low and steady. Easy, girl. Nobody's going to hurt you. I know you're scared. I know you don't trust this. The mare's ears twitched forward just slightly. But I'm scared too. So maybe we can figure this out together. He took another step. The mare shifted, but didn't bolt. Another step. His hands were steady, even though his pulse was racing. 5 feet away now. close enough to see the white around her eyes, the sweat in her neck. That's it. Car's voice was softer now, almost encouraging. Let her see you're not a threat. Dalton extended his hand, palm open. The mayor's nostrils flared, pulling in his scent. For a long moment, nothing. Then, slowly, she lowered her head and pressed her nose to his palm. The tension in her body eased just a fraction. Behind him, Carr made a sound that might have been approval. Dalton reached for the rope at his belt, moving with aching slowness. The mayor watched, but didn't pull away. He looped it over her neck, gentle. No pressure. She accepted it. He released a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. When he turned back, Carr was leaning against the fence, arms crossed, but her expression had changed. The amusement was gone. In its place was something intense, something that made his skin feel too tight. Nobody's done that on the first try. Her voice was quiet, almost reverent. She pushed off the fence and walked toward him, each step deliberate. The mayor didn't even flinch. You didn't force her, you listened. She stopped inches away, close enough that he could see gold flecks in her dark eyes. That's rare. Dalton's breath was shallow. It's just no. She reached up, placed her hand flat against his chest. His heart slammed against her palm, and he knew she felt it. It's not just anything. Her fingers curled into the fabric of his shirt. You've got something most men don't. You know how to be gentle without being weak. The air between them felt electric, dangerous. Her hand was still on his chest, burning through the cloth, and he didn't know if he wanted her to move it or press harder. Come back to Thikabin, she said, her voice low and rough. The sun's dropping, and there's more I need to teach you. Before her could respond, she turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the arena with the mayor and 100 questions she didn't have words for yet. The sun was lower when they returned to the cabin, painting the canyon walls in shades of copper and shadow. Kaya moved to the fireplace, kneeling to stack wood with practiced efficiency. Dalton stood near the table, unsure where to put his hands, unsure what came next. You can sit, she said without looking at him. I don't bite. A pause. Unless you ask. The heat in his face had nothing to do with the fire she was building. He lowered himself into the chair, watching her work. She moved with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted a single action in her life. It was magnetic and terrifying in equal measure. The fire caught, flames licking upward. Kaya stood, brushed her hands on her pants, and turned to face him. The firelight carved shadows across her face, made her eyes darker, deeper. You hungry? I should be. His voice was steadier now, but I don't think I could eat. Her lips curved, nervous, confused. He met her as held it. You said you're tired. Of men who lie, so I won't. I don't understand what's happening here. I don't understand why he gestured vaguely between them. This crosseth space between them. Pulled out the other chair and sat close enough that their knees touched. She didn't move away from the contact. Neither did he. You want the truth? Yes. 5 years ago, I left a place where I was treated like property, like something to be owned, traded, broken in. Her voice was flat, factual, but underneath it ran a current of old rage. I came here to be alone, to belong to no one. And every man who's shown up at my door since has tried to prove I was wrong. that I needed them, that I should be grateful for their attention. Dalton's chest tightened. I'm sorry, don't be. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, close enough now that he could see the thin scar above her eyebrow. You showed up terrified, asking for your horse, not demanding, not assuming. And when I tested you with Mare, you didn't try to dominate her. You listened. Her hand found his knee, rested there. Do you know how rare that is? He couldn't breathe. Her palm was warm through the fabric, burning like a brand. Ka, I'm not trying, Toscari. You, Dalton. I'm trying to show you something. Her hand slid up, slow, deliberate, stopping mid-thigh. High's entire body went rigid. You think you're weak because you're gentle, because you don't swagger around like you own Thewald. But that's not weakness. That's strength you don't even know. You have yet. His voice came out rough. What do you want from me? Her eyes locked on his. And for the first time since he'd arrived, he saw something vulnerably covert. I want to know what it's like to be with someone who sees me as a person. Not a challenge, not a conquest. Her hand moved to his, threaded their fingers together. And I want you to know what it's like to not be afraid of your own desire. The word hung in the air between them. Desire. He felt it now, coiling in his stomach, tightening his throat. It wasn't just attraction. It was something deeper, more dangerous. The pull towards someone who saw through all his careful walls. I don't know how, he admitted quietly. Ka's smile was soft, almost tender. That's why I'm her. She stood, pulling him up with her. They were inches apart now, her height bringing them nearly eye to eye. Lesson 1. Stop apologizing for taking up space. I wasn't. You were about to. She placed both hands on his chest, felt his heart racing beneath her palms. Breathe. Stay right here. Don't run from what you're feeling. Dalton's hands lifted, hesitated in the air between them. Unsure where to land, Ka took them, placed them on her waist. The curve of her body under his palms made his head spin. Like this, she whispered. Just hold on. They stood like that as the fire crackled, neither moving, both breathing in tandem. And for the first time in his life, Dalton Hayes didn't feel invisible. But outside, the sun was sinking fast, and the night ahead held promises neither of them had named yet. Night came fast in the canyon, swallowing the last threads off daylight like something hungry. Kaya lit 2 oil lamps, casting the cabin in warm, flickering amber. She moved to the far corner, began unbuckling the leather braces on her forearms. Dalton watched, unable to look away as she set them aside piece by piece, armor coming off. Tell me something, she said, her back to him as she rolled her shoulders. What do you think about when you're alone at night? The question caught him off guard. I don't, yes, you do. Shatand crossed her arms. Everyone thinks about something. What keeps Dalton Hayes awake? He should have vertiflected, should have made a joke or changed the subject. But something about the firelight in her eyes and their fact that he'd already crossed so many lines today made him honest. I think about what it would feel like to mateto someone, to not just be useful. Ka's expression softened. Useful, that's. Alive, ever been. The son who worked the ranch. The neighbor who helps with fences. The man who shows up when there's a problem. He stood paced to the window, stared out at the dark. Nobody's ever looked at me and thought I was anything more than a pair of hands that could fix things. The floorboards creaked behind him. Then her voice, closer than he expected. I'm looking at you now. He turned. She was right there, close enough that her breath ghosted across his jaw. What do you see? Someone who's been invisible his whole life. Her hand came up, traced the line of his collarbone through his shirt. Someone who's terrified of being seen. Because if people actually look, they might want something from you that you don't know how to give. The accuracy of it knocketh there from his lungs. How do you? Because I've been there. Her fingers moved to the top button of his shirt, rested there, but didn't unfasten it. Except I ran away and hid. You stayed and made yourself smaller. Her. Ice lifted to his. Which one of us is braver? You, he said without hesitation. Wrong. She undid the button. Slow and deliberate. His breathing went shallow. You're standing here shaking, letting me see you. That's the bravest thing I've witnessed in 5 years. Another button. Another. Her knuckles brushed his skin and electricity shot down his spine. Car, do you want me to? Stop. The question hung between them like a blade. He could say yes, could step back, could walk out that door and ride home and never think about this night again. Except he knew that was a lie. He'd think about it every day for the rest of his life. No, he whispered. Her smile was slow, approving. She pushed the shirt off his shoulders, let it fall. Her palms pressed flat against his chest, and he felt the tremor in his own body, saw her notice it, saw something like tenderness cross her face. You're safe here, she said softly. I need you to know that nothing happens that you didn't want. What if I don't know what I want? Then we'll figure it out together. She took his hand, placed it over her heart. He felt it beating, strong and steady. Feel that. I'm nervous too, because this matters. You matter. The words hit him like a fist. No one had ever said that to him. Not like this, not meaning it in the way she did. His other hand came up, cupped her face. Her skin was warm, smooth under his calloused palm. She leaned in to touch, eyes closing for just a second. When they opened again, something had shifted. The air was heavier, charged. Dalton, she said, voice barely above a whisper. If you're going to kiss me, do it now before I lose my nerve, and do it first. His heart stopped, restarted. She wanted him to. Him, the man who'd never kissed anyone who didn't know the first thing about how she was, looking at him like he was the only person in the world. And maybe that was enough. Maybe wanting it was enough. Hellened and slow, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their breath mingled, his hand tightening in her hair, her fingers curling into his skin. 1 more inch, 1 more heartbeat, and then a sound shattered the moment. Hoof beats fast and hard coming up. Theknian path. Multiple horses. Car's head. Snapped toward the door, every muscle in her body going tense. Get dressed, she said, voice gone cold and sharp. Know what? Someone's coming and they're not here for a social visit. Dalton grabbed his shirt from the floor, fingers fumbling with buttons as Kaya moved to the window. She pulled the curtain back an inch, eyes scanning the darkness. The hoofbeats grew louder, closer, then stopped just outside the fence line. Voices drifted through the walls. 3 men, maybe 4. Car, the voice was rough, demanding, we know you're in there. Come out and talk. She didn't move, didn't flinch. But Dalton saw her jaw tighten, saw her hand drop to the knife at her belt. Stay inside, she said quietly. No matter what you hear. Who are they? Nobody you need to worry about. She moved toward the door, but Dalton stepped in front of it, blocking her path. That's not an answer. Her eyes flashed. Move. No. The word surprised him as much as it did her. You don't get to protect me like I'm a child. Who are they? For a moment, she looked, like she might shove him aside. Then something in her expression cracked. Ranchers from 2 valleys over. They've been trying to force me off this land for 3 years. They think a woman alone is an easy target. Her voice was bitter. They're on, Car, we can talk. Another voice. Younger, almost pleading. Just come out. We're not here to fight. They're lying, Car said flatly. She tried to move past Dalton, but he caught her wrist. Then let me go out there with you. She stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Dalton, you said, I'm not weak for being gentle. Prove you meant it. His heart was hammering, but his voice was steady. Let me stand with you. Something flickered across her face. Surprise. Maybe respect. Maybe fear. She pulled her hand free, studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Stay behind me. Don't speak unless I tell you to. And if things go bad, you run. Understand, I'm not running. Her smile was sharp and sad. Well, see? She opened the door, stepped out into the night. Dalton followed, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. For men on horseback, sit outside the fence, silhouettes against the stars. The one in front was older, thick-shouldered, with a face carved from hard years and harder choices. Marcus Carr's voice could have cut glass. You've got 30 seconds before I start shooting. The man, Marcus, raised Hishen's palms out. Easy, we're just here to talk. His eyes shifted to Dalton, narrowed. Who's the boy? None of your concern. It is as if he's claiming this land with you. Marcus leaned forward in his saddle. See, that's why we're here. Word got around that you've been taking horses that don't belong to you, including one belonging to young Hayes here. He nodded toward Dalton. That true boy. She'll steal your property. Dalton felt Kaya go rigid beside him. This was a trap. If he said yes, they'd use it as justification to run her off. If he said no, they'd call him a liar. He opened his mouth, unsure. What would come out? He's here by choice, Carr said before he could speak. The horse is mine now. We made a trade. Marcus's smile was ugly. What kind of trade? The implication in his tone made Dalton's blood go cold. He stepped forward, pasted Kaya, ignoring her hiss of warning. The kind that is known of your business. She didn't steal anything, and I'm not going anywhere. The words hung in the air. Marcus. Smile faded. That's so you're taking her side against your own people. I'm taking the side of what's right. Dalton's hands were shaking, but he didn't back down. And what's right is you turning around and leaving before this gets ugly. One of the other men laughed. You threatening us, Hayes? I'm telling you the truth. Dalton's voice didn't waver. You want to come after her? You come through me first. The Silence that followed was electric. Marcus studied him like he was a puzzle that didn't quite fit together. Then he spat in Teth dirt. "You're making a mistake by siding with her. But that's your choice." He gathered his race. "We'll be back, and next time we won't ask nicely." The four riders turned, disappeared into the darkness. The sound of hoofs faded gradually, swallowed by the night. Only then did Dalton realize he'd been holding his breath. He turned. Car was staring at him like she'd never seen him before. She didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there in the darkness, staring at him like he'd done something incomprehensible. Dalton's adrenaline was crashing, leaving him shaky and unsure. "I'm sorry if I don't." Her voice was rough. "Don't apologize." She crossed the distance between them in 3 strides, grabbed his face with both hands, and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was fierce, desperate, full of something that tasted like gratitude and fury and relief all mixed together. Dalton's brain went blank, his hand scumming up to her waist on instinct, pulling her closer. She made a sound low in her throat, her fingers threading into his hair, and he forgot how to breathe. When she pulled back, they were both gasping. Her forehead pressed against his, her breath hot against his mouth. "Nobody's ever done that," she whispered. "Nobody's ever stood up for him. I couldn't." His voice cracked. "I couldn't let them talk to you like that. You could have." Her thumbs traced his cheekbones. "You could have stayed silent. Stayed safe. Let me handle it alone like I always do." Her eyes were wet, catching the lamplight from inside the cabin. "But you didn't. I told you I'm not running." She kissed him again, softer this time, achingly tender. When she pulled back, she took his hand, led him inside, closed the door behind them. The fire had burned low, casting long shadows. She turned to face him, and something in her posture was different, softer, more open. "5 years," she said quietly. "5 years I've been alone because I thought it was safer. Thought trusting someone would make me weak again." She stepped closer, placed his hand over her heart. "But she stood there terrified, anxious me anyway. Chose to be seen defending me even. Though it could cost you everything." "It won't cost. It will." Her voice was firm. "Marcus will spread word. The other ranchers will turn on you. They'll make it hard for you to sell cattle, to trade, to do business. That's how they work." Her hand covered us, and you did it anyway. Dalton's throat was tight. "You're worth it." She closed her eyes, and a single tear slid down her cheek. He'd never seen her cry, didn't think she was capable of it. But there it was. Proof that beneath the armor, she was just as human as he was. Just as scared. "I don't know how to doff this," she admitted. "How to let someone in. How to be soft. Then don't be." He pulled her closer, wrapped his arms around her. She stiffened for a heartbeat, then melted against him, her face buried in his shoulder. "Be exactly who you are. That's all I want." They stood like that for a long time, her breathing gradually steadying, his hands gentle on her back. Eventually she pulled away, wiped her eyes roughly. "I need to tell you something about why I came here. You don't have to." "Yes, I do." She moved to the bed, sat on the edge. Dalton joined her close, but not touching. "I was married to a man who thought owning a woman meant breaking her spirit. He tried for 3 years. Het trade," her voice was flat, factual. "One night, I fought back, put a knife through his hand, and ran. Took nothing but the clothes on my back, and didn't stop until I couldn't hear his voice in my head anymore. Dalton's chest. Oaked car. I came here because I never wanted to belong to anyone again. Never wanted to be vulnerable. And then you showed up scared and honest, and so different from every man I've ever known. She turned to look at him. You make me want to try. And that terrifies me. He reached for her hand, threaded their fingers together. I'm terrified, too, of messing this up, of not being enough, of she kissed him, cutting off the words. When she pulled back, her smile was small but real. You're enough. You've always been enough. You just didn't know it yet. Outside, the night was deep and quiet. Inside, the fire crackled, and between them, something new and fragile began to take root. Something neither of them had names for, but both recognized as worth fighting for. Stay, she whispered against his mouth. Not because of the horse. Stay because you want to. I want to, he said, and meant it. But as the night deepened and they finally gave in to what they'd been circling all day, neither of them knew that sunrise would bring a choice neither was ready to make. Dawn broke pale and soft over the canyon rim, spilling gold across their floorboards. Through the window, Dalton woke slowly, his body heavy and warm. Car was beside him, her head on his chest, her breathing deep and even. For a long moment, he didn't move, afraid that if did, the spell would break and he'd discover this at all. Been a dream. But then she stirred, lifted her head, and looked at him with eyes still soft from sleep. Morning, she said quietly. Morning. His voice was rough, unsure. Everything felt different in daylight. Exposed, real. She sat up, ran a hand through her tangled hair. Your horse is in the corral. You can take him whenever you're ready. Her tone was careful, neutral, giving him an out. Dalton pushed himself up, reached for his shirt. Is that what you want? For me to leave? Carr stood, moved to the window, stared out at the rising sun. I don't now. What I want anymore. Her voice was small, almost fragile. I've been alone so long, I forgot what it feels like to need someone. And now you're here. And she stopped, shoulders tight. What upons when you go back? When reality sets in? When you realize what you gave up defending me? He crossed to her, placed his hands on her shoulders, turned her to face him. I didn't give up anything. I found something. His hands framed her face. You keep acting like you're something to be ashamed of. Like I'm going to wake up and regret this. But I won't. I couldn't. You don't know that. Yes, I do. His voice was firm, certain. Because for the first time in my life, I don't feel invisible. You see me? All of me, and I'm not afraid anymore. He leaned his forehead against hers. You asked me last night to stay because I wanted to. I'm asking you now. Let me keep staying. Not just tonight, tomorrow, the day after. As long as you'll have me. Her breath caught. Dalton, your ranch. We'll run fine with hired help. Or I'll sell it. Or I'll split my time between here and there. I don't care. His thumbs traced her cheekbones. I spent 24 years buying useful to everyone but myself. Let me be selfish for once. Let me choose this. Choose you. Tears spilled over. tracking down her face. You don't know what you're saying. Marcus will make your life difficult. The other ranchers, let them. He kissed her, soft and sure. He didn't need their approval. I just need you to tell me I'm not doing this alone. She pulled back, searched his eyes, looking for doubt or hesitation. Found neither. You really mean it. Every word. A laugh broke out of her, watery and disbelieving. You walked in here yesterday scared of your own shadow. And no, you're ready too. Burn your whole life down for a woman you barely know. I know you. His smile was gentle. I know you're strong, but you've been hurt. I know you push people away because it's safer than letting them close. I know you see things in me I've never seen in myself. He pulled her against him, held her tight. And I know I've never felt more alive than I have in the last 12 hours. So yeah, if that's burning it down, hand me the match. She clung to him, her face buried in his neck, and he felt her body shake with something between laughter and sobs. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were red but clear. Okay, stay as long as you want. Build something here with me. She kissed him, fierce and claiming, but I'm keeping the horse. He laughed, the sound free and light. Deal. Outside, the sun climbed higher. The grey stallion watched from the corral, unbothered by his change in ownership. And inside the cabin, two people who'd spent their lives feeling like they didn't quite fit anywhere, discovered that maybe they fit with each other. Dalton Hayes had come for a horse and found something infinitely more valuable. A woman who saw his gentleness as strength and a version of himself he never knew existed. And Carr, the desert Amazon who'd sworn off trusting anyone, learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone stay. The canyon held its secrets, but this story of two broken pieces finding wholeness together would belong only Totham. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to discover another unforgettable tale, where corrosion connection change everything in ways you never expected. Don't forget to subscribe and consider a super chat to help us keep bringing you more stories like these. Your support means the world to us.